Howdy folks, and welcome back. Hopefully you were able to work through the examples last week and get your code compiled and run. In this video we're going to learn how C++ defines truth and how to use if statements to choose which parts of our code to execute. Now as far as C++ is concerned, something is either true or false. There's nothing in between. You represent true and false with their keywords, true and false. You can store this kind of value with a bool variable. Now, you don't have to use true or false as your values. The way the bool type works is that any non-zero value gets interpreted as true, and a value of 0 will always be false. Most of the time, if you're using truth, you'll be comparing things and then determining whether the comparison is true or false. We use built-in relational operators for this. Now here's just an overview of these operators. The double equal sign means equal to. For example, 5 equal 5 would evaluate to true. 5 equal 8 would evaluate to false because 5 is not equal to 8. This double equal sign means is equal to. An exclamation mark followed by an equal sign translates to not equal to. 5 is not equal to 8, that's true. 5 is not equal to 5, that's false. Greater than and less than, those are basic, probably the same as you saw in elementary school and then in your high school algebra and your college algebra classes. This is actually less than or equal to, not greater than or equal to. I meant to put that as greater than or equal to because 8 is greater than or equal to 5 is true. 5 is greater than or equal to 8, that's false. And here this should be the less than sign or equal to. 5 is less than or equal to 8. 8 is less than or equal to 5. So for these two operators here, ignore the operator in this column and just look at how it's presented in this area here. Okay, now a lot of times, well, as I said, you'll be comparing things and determining whether the comparison is true or false. We use these built-in relationship operators. And in the if statement, we use that to test an expression for truth, to tell whether something is true or false, and then execute our code based on that. This is a real simple form of the if statement. If the expression is true, then the statement is executed. If the expression is not true, we just skip the statement and move on to the code after the group of code that makes up our if suite. So we'll put that into practice by rating some scores. Okay, we're creating a score rater. So I've got a new text document here. I will go ahead and save this as scorerater.cpp. And I'll begin writing my code. Score rater, and this demonstrates our if statement. We'll go ahead and include IOStream because we need that. And to save some typing, using namespace std, and then open up our main function. If true, the code for our if suite, our statements, should always be wrapped in these curly braces. So if true, this is always displayed. And you'll see that it is displayed because we're testing true. true is always true. Okay, next we'll have if false. This is never displayed. And again, you'll see that when we run our code, because false is always false. Now we'll go ahead and create an integer. We'll declare an integer called score, and we will set that to 1000. If score, so this is going to test if score is greater than 0, if score is true or false. If it's greater than 0, it's true. If it's 0, it's false. I'm going to expect this to run, to execute when I run my code. Because we've defined score as 1000, so score will definitely be greater than 0. It will not be equal to 0, therefore it will be true. Now let's do something that actually does some testing. If score is greater than or equal to 250, and this one too, I'm pretty sure this will run, simply because I know that score is greater than 250. So let's test if score is greater than or equal to 500. Oh, actually, we're going to back up here. You can do what is called nesting with your if statements, and we'll do that here. Inside of this if statement, we'll run another test if score is greater than or equal to 1000. And if it is, that's the code that I will run. I close out my internal if statement, and now I need to make sure I close my first if statement. Okay, and you can see here, if I collapse this in my editor, we can tell that I've got a closed, I've completely closed out that if statement because there's no extra code showing. If your text editor doesn't provide that kind of a feature, then you have to make sure that you look closely at your code, and you should do this anyways, just to make sure that you close everything. Okay, now we'll return 0 to show the end of our main function. Close our main function. And I'm going to go ahead and save this. And we'll go ahead and compile. Type G++ score rater.cpp. And I'll go ahead and run my executable. Okay, So take a look at what we wrote. Our first if statement, this is always displayed, and it is. Our second if statement, this is never displayed, it is not. Then we have, at least you didn't score 0, you scored 250 or more, 500 or more, 1,000 or more. So all of our other statements ran because that is how the program is written. Now that works nicely, but we could make our code even more efficient if we use else statements along with our if statement. The else statement provides code that will only be executed if the tested expression is false. You can make your code more elegant. You can offer more options by fine-tuning how you want things to branch, and then using if-else combinations to handle the logic of it all. The way it works is like this. If expression is true, then statement 1. Else, statement 2. Okay, let's go ahead and take a look at a couple of examples in version 2.0 and 3.0 of our game scorer program. In version 2.0 of our score rater, we're going to utilize our else clause. So I will close score rater 1, create a new text document, and I will save this as score rater 2.cpp, score rater 2.0, which demonstrates an else clause. Okay, again, I'm going to include IOStream. I'm going to direct the compiler to use namespace std and declare my main function. I'll go ahead and declare an integer called score. And this time I'm going to get the score from the user. So I prompt them to enter your score. Send their input to score. And now we'll do some testing. If score is greater than or equal to 1,000, we'll tell them you scored 1,000 or more. Impressive. Next, we'll have an else statement. This will only be executed if their score is not greater than or equal to 1,000. Return 0 to end our main function. Close out our main function, save, and now I'll go ahead and compile and run our executable. I'm going to put in a score of 1,200 this time around, and it says I scored 1,000 or more. Now I'll run it again, and this time I'll put a score of 999, and you can see that instead of saying that I scored 1,000 or more, our program properly executes our else statement and says that I scored less than 1,000. Now in version 3.0, we're going to get a little more complicated here. We're going to have an if-else suite of statements that will allow some more granularity and uh, allow us to be more precise in our programming. So I'll go ahead and create a new text document. Move that over here. And I want to save this as scoreRater3.cpp. Okay, this is ScoreRater 3.0, which demonstrates if-else suite. Once again, we include IOStream and direct our compiler to use the std namespace. Open our main function. Declare an integer called score. Prompt the user to go ahead and enter their score, and then store their input into the score integer. Now we begin testing. If score is greater than or equal to 1,000, you scored 1,000 or more. Else if score is greater than or equal to 500, then we'll have else if score is greater than or equal to 250, I wanted this to say nice, not impressive. And for 250 or more, we'll say that their score was decent. And this is our final else. This is the catch-all. If whatever they enter is less than 250, but we don't want to break it out any further than that. Okay, and then we end that, and we return 0. Close our main function, save it, and compile. Okay, looks like I've got an error in line 28. Oh, yep, I left off my closing semicolon there. So let's try our compile again after fixing that, and no errors that time. Okay, we're going to go ahead and enter a score of 15. And you can see here that none of our first 3 statements are shown. All that's shown is you scored less than 250. Let's run it again, and this time enter 1001. It says I scored 1,000 or more. 500 says I scored 500 or more. 600 says the same thing. and 300 says we scored 250 or more. Okay, so that is the if and the else statement. And in our next session, we will look at the switch clause, and then we'll work on generating random numbers and some other fun looping and things like that. So stay tuned for the next video.